Hello all, welcome back to the lecture series on postcolonial writings. Today we'll look into the characterization in the play The Strong Breed by Wole Soyinka. So in the last class we have discussed the story of the play and we look into the characters in detail in this lecture. First, we'll move on to the protagonist, that is Iman, as you all know. We'll look into the specialities assigned to him as a character, as a person. The characterization of Iman hinges on the ritual aesthetics of the symbolic drama and narrative. He carries the sins of the village for societal cleansing and rejuvenation, as you all see in the beginning of the play itself. Iman is depicted as the kind, generous human character at the expense of himself, but stubborn. Because you can see that after the repeated pleas made by Sanma, he is not ready to change his mind. As the curtain opens, he is having little quarrel, simply put a misunderstanding with Sanma due to the presence of Ifada, the idiot whom Iman loves. Because Sanma was very much disturbed by the presence of Ifada, because as we have discussed in the earlier lecture, Sanma knows what is about to happen and there is a chance for Iman sacrificing himself. Irrespective of the status or physical conditions, Iman welcomes anyone to his life more so as he is the teacher. So in the beginning itself you have seen that he is a teacher as well as healer. So he is giving place to or a shelter or home to Ifda, as well as you can see another girl visiting his place, but she is not ready to, even though she is not ready to take the treatment or any kind sort of advice from him. That girl is also sick and often finds place in his hut. So technically Iman is depicted as both the teacher and healer, as recreation of Jesus Christ due to the task ahead of him. Several Western critics actually compares him to Jesus Christ, as mentioned in the other lecture. His stubbornness and pig-headed attitude to Sanma's plea of leaving the community just for the night became a starting point for the drawing near of his destiny as marked by the gods. Prior to this, Iman had fled from his village, running away from his fate to another village for 12 years in search of for free life, but unfortunately his fate is predetermined or kind of predestined fate, then hence cannot outrun it. Settled at the village where strangers are used as sacrificial lamb to placate the gods or every new year on every New Year Eve. The characterization of Iman is the pattern of culture and tradition that Soyinka has infused in the Yoruba cosmology. As evident, Iman is the epitome of the carrier and scapegoat in the play, the only strong breed in the community that can take the boat to the river. His human sympathy for Ifada indirectly turned himself to be the carrier, as he willfully chose in his words, I quote, "In my home we believe that a man should be willing." Hence, he is the symbol of sacrificial goat a community needs for cleansing. Even though he tried running away from his fate, he ended up choosing it. You all saw. As the strong breed that can take the boat to the river, it became revealing that the playwright used him to comment on the individualism ideology as a quintessential factor for community wholeness. Although he breaks away from the puberty rites and even refuses to take part in the ceremony of his tribe, ironically, he is made a scapegoat of sacrificial ritual for another tribe. For Helen Gilbert, a critic, Iman is a redeemer hero who is often identified with Jesus Christ. This can be considered as taken as an example of Soyinka's Western educated mind, or Soyinka's association with this Western theater, and he is bringing in the element, or deliberately putting in that and the element of sacrifice, and a possibility of this linkage between Christ and his protagonist. Both Iman and Christ sacrificed their lives for the larger good of community, as the critic Gilbert says. In his defiance and courage, Iman demonstrates Ogun-like characteristics. Ogun is one of the Yoruban gods like characteristics, starting with his very adaptation of the scapegoat function. In the myth of Ogun, as explained by another critic and a person who is very much interested in mythology, Bolaji Idowo, I quote, Ogun lived as an outsider to the Ife people. This parallels Iman's situation as a stranger in the community. Unquote. Ogun's isolation is one of the striking features of his shrine at Isle Elf. Is situated on the top of a hill. The site of the shrine is believed to be the spot where the gods, led by Ogun, first set foot on earth in order to be reunited with humankind. According to the myth, Ogun's isolation ended when, in acknowledgement of his leadership of the divinities, gods, and humans, says Soyinka, joined to offer him a crown, as he mentioned in his famous critical work Myth and Literature. Ogun is accepted as the king of the community, and Iman here is rejected as a village carrier, as you all see in the play. The tragic outcome of the two situations in terms of suffering while going through the transitional period are similar. So the only comparison or only similarity is that transitional phase and the things that are being undergone by both the characters. As in Ogun, the kind of difficulties Ogun as a god faced while he tries to bring in other gods to earth. So that tragic situation is similar, but the end story is different. He is accepted, whereas Iman is rejected. Another parallel between Iman's and Ogun's nature lies in the destruction or creative duality of their acts. Destruction is often necessary for creation, it is believed so. So, Iman's sacrifice of his life is simultaneously constructive for the community, since it elicits a change of attitude from the villagers. This you can see towards the end of the play, in the last 2 pages of the play, where the conversation between Jaguna and Rogue goes in another manner. Because until then they were so, you can see that they were so confident in what they were doing. But when they reach at this stage after the sacrifice, they were kind of confused, or whether they were kind of confused about what they have done. Soyinka reinforces his view about that absurdity by letting the audience feel some kind of regret invading Oroga and Jaguna. This information is given first in the stage directions, where we learn that villagers are subdued and guilty of what they have done. They were confused and they started thinking about, okay, this ritual of sacrificing a person, whether it brings some sort of wellness to them or not. They are guilty of being obliged to sacrifice almost unwillingly a human being for the mistakes he has not committed himself. Moreover, they have caused the unnatural death of Iman, even though his fated task as a carrier is natural to an extent. This leads Oroga and Jaguna to regret their acts, particularly when they consider the attitude of the villagers. And of course, you know that he was a good person and he was working hard for the well-being of those villagers. Coming to this last 2 pages in your play, you can see Jaguna talking. I am sick to the heart of the cowardice I have seen tonight. To that Orog replies that is the nature of men. Jaguna, then it is a sorry world to live in. We did it for them. It was all for their own common good. What did it benefit me whether the man lived or died? But did you see them? One and all, they looked up at the men, and words died in their throats. Orog, It was no common sight. Jaguna, women could not have behaved so shamefully. One by one, they crept off like sick dogs. Not one could raise a curse. Rogue, it was not only him they fled. Do you see how unattended are, Jaguna? There are those who will pay for this night's work. Rogue, hey, let us go home. So that is how the play ends. So from there you can see that Iman's sacrifice of his life has brought in some sort of changes in the attitude of the villagers. A ray of hope. The atmosphere in which Soinga puts Rogue and Jaguna on the other hand, and the audience on the other hand, is meant to epitomize the inner feeling of both the actors and the audience of the play. Entails a sensation of guilt in front of an absurd ritual practiced unlawfully. This is the point where Iman could bring in that change without being present there through a sacrifice. Iman is not present at this point because he is already dead, but through his death the protagonist could bring some sort of change, a slight change. So that's all about the characterization of Iman. Now we'll move on to the character of Sanma. So as I mentioned earlier, she's strong-willed, only realistic character in this play, and also she is strong-willed to bring some sort of changes in her village. She speaks against all those evils that are happening in this village practices, but there are so many constraints before her to reach her all these things that she wished to bring in. We will look into how it is. A realist who fights against the tradition and customs of sacrificing a stranger to the gods for cleansing. So that is what she is doing. She describes the people, that is the villagers, who are okay with this tradition as evil. She stands aloof from her community, commenting on their barbaric practice but unable to cause a change. One reason is that she is the daughter of the village leader, Jaguna, so her movements are of course restricted. She has some sort of power and freedom, but of course she can't take decision in these matters. Noteworthy, she is selfish and possessive lover because she is trying her best to save Iman, and also that is why she hated Ifada for taking refuge there. Knowing the circumstances that would come by the night, she tried all she could do to alienate Ifada from Iman. Unfortunately, Iman was adamant and he was not ready to listen to her. She observed some great qualities and potentials in Iman which she could help to mold into shape, ready to play the part of a deliverer and rescue Iman. However, she failed because from the natural perspective, it is impossible to save Iman from his predestined choice. Because as we discussed in the summary, this kind of his father's words were kind of haunting him for a long time. That's why after this 12 years of exile, he came back and finally finds that okay, this is my destiny and this will make my life complete. In that attitude, Iman is taking up this thing. So as a realist in the play who tried to break forces in inhibiting freedom, she lacks the potent tool for her realistic movement of emancipation as she was crushed by her traditional father. And so she couldn't do much. Her fight against her father depicted the fight of a realist versus traditionalist, of course. Her incessant hatred of Ifda is as a result of potent sacrifice wherewith the gods feast on strangers' flesh, hence becoming selfish and jealous about hers, because Ifda is a stranger as well as Iman is also a stranger. So since she loves Iman a lot, she obviously tries to save him. In spite of the time Iman has spent in the village, the reality is that he is still a stranger and may be chosen as a carrier, that she knows very well. This is understood by Sanma, who tries to tries her best to convince Iman to leave the village with her for the night. I quote her, by yourself, you can do nothing here. Have you not noticed how tightly we shut out strangers? Even if you lived here for a lifetime, you would remain a stranger. Unquote. So she, after all, she has a realistic perspective about the life, and her truthful words about the villages were um, proved right towards the end. So that is all about Sanma. Now we'll look into the characters of Jaguna and Rogue. Jaguna, of course, you know that he's the village leader, and Rogue is his uh, attendant, stalwart, most trustworthy person. So Jaguna is the face of tradition in the play, bent and charged with the responsibility of sacrificing the character to the gods at an appointed time. He's a harsh character, leader character who did not develop, and a protagonist charting for the course of the customs and traditions so as to have community free of sin in the coming year. Jaguna in the play is hasty and mechanical as the play progresses, despite the fact that Rogue, on the other hand, is fighting for the same cause. He is subtle and cunning. So both of them holds the quality of leadership very well. The difference is that Jaguna is kind of harsh in implementing things, but Rogue is a kind of diplomatic. The device used in their characterization is opposing and hence suggests the healthy division of human opinion and quality of leadership. This is evident in the manner Rogue handles situation at Iman's house when searching for Ifada. Perhaps situation might be chaotic had it been was only Jaguna, but Rogue kind of manipulated the people over there, and he handles the situation more well. Oro's character has been described by scholars to have established the essence of tragedy in the play, unlike Jaguna. Orog is thoughtful and develops as the play progresses, even when charting for the same course of purification right. For instance, you can listen to the lines from the play. Orog says, I hope our friend won't make trouble. That's actually a dialogue towards Iman, Jaguna. He had better not. You recall all the men and tell them to surround the house. Jaguna, in all intricacy, seems to approach violent means in solving the situation, while Orog adopts a kind of friendly, diplomatic approach. Their characterization differs in their leadership qualities and styles. The method of implementation especially. Jaguna is described in the play as a bully that even his daughter is not left out from being the victim of his bully. For instance, Jaguna's dialogues with his daughter. Daughter, you better tell your friend. I don't think he quite knows our ways. Tell him he must give up the boy. That is boy Ifada. Jaguna again. Are you going to tell him or aren't you? He again. See that she gets home. I no longer trust her. So that's the order from Jaguna. Jaguna. Again, my daughter, does this one look like my daughter? Let me cripple the harlot for life. So now he is really angry and Orog interferes at that situation. Orog, on the other hand, is characterized as a man with good quality leadership. For instance, he says, nothing in anger. Do you forget what tonight is? Because he says that this is not the time to quarrel with your daughter or trying to like control your daughter, because we are on a greater purpose, or we are after a greater thing. We need to do the ritual, perform the ritual tonight itself, since it is the New Year Eve. So we don't have much time to waste. So you can see that he could handle the situation very well. You see, Mr. Man, it is like this. We don't have to burn down the house, you see. But if the words get around, we would have no choice. So that is what Rogue does. These instances prove the divergencies in their characterization, and how well these people do their roles well. Now we'll look into the characters of the old man and Ome. Ome is Iman's wife, old man is his father. These two characters are not clearly perceived as others because they come in only in those flashback scenes. They are majorly symbolic to the understanding of the play. The old man, father to Iman, clearly symbolizes the impression of inevitability and doom. According to Ogunba, a critic, his character, I quote, is the voice of a ghost impregnated with divine truth. Also, unquote. Also, he is the symbol of the strong breed that has been carrying the communal sin to the river bank every year. Now, about Ome, she's a sharp-witted, precocious, and radiant in her girlish innocence. Even though she is abandoned for those long 12 years, she is coping during Iman's absence. Especially, she lived with that Iman's father at that time. She managed the situation very well. So that's all about the characterization of the old man and Ome, and also the old man's ghostly appearance because his words or his dialogues haunts this Iman all through his life. That's why we are the critic says that it is the voice of ghost impregnated with divine truth. So, and yeah, so that is his role, that is to remind Iman about his life's purpose. Okay, so that's all about the characters. The idea of moral disgust permeates the play. And then the final question which arises in the strong breed is that did the society get rejuvenation or not? And we can say that it didn't get rejuvenation, but some sort of change happened. That's what we explained towards the end of that characterization of Iman, where this Jaguna and Rogue, I read out those dialogues from the end part of the play. Hope you remember. So even after the sacrifice of Iman, the confusion and the hypocritical attitude continues in the society, and it evokes a horror, dread and guilt. The bewildering words of Jaguna, I quote, "There are those who will pay for this night's work," unquote. We read it earlier, reflects the disillusionment of the writer with the societal norms and practices, or the writer is trying to bring in that the disillusionment that happened in the society to the people or the audience. Even after Iman is killed, his sacrificial death does not appear to content the villagers. Iman, like Jesus Christ, sacrifices his life to an insensitive village. So that's all for today. I'll be back with the themes as well as the dramatic techniques in the next lecture. Until then, stay safe. Thank you.